Morning, everyone. How are we all doing this morning? Good, yeah? Fantastic. My name is Matthew Campelli. I'm the founder and editor of the Sustainability Report, the inside track in sport and sustainability. And this morning, I'm joined by Anne-Cécile Turner, who is the founder of Blue Shift Consulting and the head of sustainability at the Ocean Race. Thank you for joining me, Anne-Cécile.
You're welcome.
Just before we kick off, actually, just a quick question for the audience. How many of you were in the previous session that Anne-Cécile was in earlier? Fantastic. Okay, so we all know what we're talking about. Excellent. We've only got a few minutes, Anne-Cécile, so maybe we could go slightly deeper on some of the topics that you discussed during your panel session. And the one thing that really interested me was this focus on innovation and the business case of sustainability. And you were very explicit about the fact that you'd seen sponsors become more engaged because of your sustainability project at the Ocean Race. And perhaps you could tell us now a little bit more detail of how you engage those sponsors with the sustainability project and how you kind of see that growing between now and the next race in 2021.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. The idea, in fact, having succeeded the integration of sustainability within the organization is to really reinvent our sponsorship strategy and to make sure that we're not just selling brand visibility, but we're selling partnerships with purpose. So that's a kind of new concept where we are creating an ecosystem of industry-led sectors, such as renewable energy, such as packaging waste and materials, such as sustainable transportation. And then we're creating a program that brand can be associated with, and then have not only the visibility and the value and of the value transfer from sponsorship, but they also have impact, tangible and concrete impact to show to their stakeholders.
So in a practical sense, how do you go about creating a sustainable sponsorship strategy? For example, is this something that other sports, other organizations could implement in their own organization?
Well, I believe any organization can do that. And you don't have to be, at the end of the journey, because nobody is really truly sustainable today. I see so many occasions and so many times where people say we can't get out there to talk about that because we are not perfect internally. Nobody is perfect internally, and I think it's a big mistake to say put your house in order first before communicating. I think we should completely change the way we've approached this. Get out there, tell the story, tell the journey, tell your challenges, engage your stakeholders, sell it even if you're not ready. And then you're going to expand because you're creating a movement as well and use your voice to talk about that. And it's going to create such much more positive impact than only putting the house in order internally and hiding it.
That's a very interesting point because I think about it and I think with sport, you've got sports that are more high profile and some that are not so high profile. And when a sport says it's being sustainable or a sports organization says it's being sustainable, then ultimately there'll be scrutiny on that organization to see what they're actually doing in practice. So for these organizations that you're saying, talk about what you're doing before trying to become perfect, how would you mitigate the risk of perhaps the scrutiny that they would receive for saying they're a sustainable organization?
Yeah, so of course, obviously, you need to be true to what you're saying, and you need to be credible in the approach. So I would say just do a little internal check, assess, start the process of assessing your impact, and fix targets of reduction, and then communicate about the objectives and the vision that you want. Reduce your environmental impact, improve your social aspects, and all that, making a lot of economic sense in our sports industry, a lot. So that's the idea of being credible, making sure the management is aligned, has understood the potential and the quality of any kind of sustainability integration, and measure along the way and communicate about the vision of the ambition of reduction, not necessarily, and also all the achievements you're doing along the lines.
How would you talk about engaging management and engaging the top people in an organization? I think when we talk about the ocean race, sustainability is very intrinsic to the ocean race. It's about ocean health and marine health. But for example, if we talk about a sport where sustainability is not such a obvious thing for it, what recommendation would you say to someone working within that organization, how they should engage management, how they should get them interested in this topic?
It's a very interesting question because there are several ways. We've seen at the panel, how do we engage the sailors? So I think you engage the sailors with the competitive aspect of it. So we're launching, for example, a renewable energy on board program, and we're going to hopefully use their competitive fiber so that the best in class will be the best in terms of renewable energy on board. For the management, I think it's another story. Everybody has something he's sensitive to. No, I always confuse these two words. And you need to either, it's a training. So we are planning sustainability trainings for the management. It can be videos, it can be conferences. I've taken the CEO to our ocean conference, which is a big conference about the ocean, to show him the scale of the issue. The voice that our voice would have. We were the only sport event in that conference, and it was a good sign as well. But it was full of ministers, of CEOs from brands, of the world, the society, talking to each other and defining the roadmap for action. And to be part of that movement is very motivating for a CEO as well.
Just quickly, in the audience, is there anyone that works for a sports organisation that is trying to implement sustainability within their sport? So, if we talk about what you mentioned about getting, what comes first, getting the message out or putting the house in order, while they're getting the message out, what are the kind of, if we're at the start of the journey, what are some of the practical things that they can do to get the ball rolling?
So very practical is it doesn't have to be very risky or very expensive. I would say get someone in either. Usually you have to have the knowledge of sustainability in terms of defining which criteria. There are now lots of very recognized certifications such as ISO 20121, the GRI on events as well. So you need to bring skills on board to make sure you're credible in terms of what you're going to measuring. Not losing time and resources to measure what can't be addressed straight away, even though it has to be done along the side. And define your strategy at the highest level in the way that it's not only about reducing your impact, it's about the impact you're going to create. So associate your organization to the SDGs that has the Sustainable Development Goals that have been highlighted by the UN, and I think that's the framework that is very well adopted now through the private sector, through the institutions. So SDGs-led strategies are interesting, and then pick one topic that will be your voice around the issue, not several, because otherwise it's confusing. It doesn't mean you don't do the job on the rest, but in terms of communication and engagement and capacity to attract additional funding for that, I think one topic is a good approach to do so.
So I think one of the arguments, if you talk to a sports organisation, ones that are not so up to speed on sustainability, will perhaps tell you that they haven't got the resource or the personnel to be able to adopt a sustainability plan or to look at these things that you're talking about. What kind of advice would you give to them about, so when they're looking at adopting certain standards like ISO 20121 or looking at the SDGs to incorporate into their own strategy, what kind of expertise do they need within an organisation? For example, I know that the Ocean Race engaged you and Blue Shift to do their sustainability strategy. Would you encourage them to look to a consultant, for example, or look to employ someone in-house, or how would they get that expertise?
So usually what happens, you will always find champions internally, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge. And I always say, Blue Shift, we have that what we call the Blue Shift network. So it's a network of global sustainability experts who have the knowledge. And we usually come on board for, it could be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, to set the scene, to define the strategy, organize workshops, and transfer the knowledge. My objective is to disappear, to be not needed anymore in the organization, because the people will be owning that subject. And now in the Ocean Race, I don't hear anymore, and told them I don't want to hear, I don't know anything about sustainability, because we do it every day in all the contracts, in all the negotiations. Each time we're buying something, everybody's now on board and thinking sustainability. So it's happening, and it's working. So that's quite a fantastic thing to see. And the risk, even the initial amount of resource you need is not that expensive.
What do you envisage as your biggest challenge, sustainability-wise, looking towards 2021?
The slowness of the awareness of that subject. Even though media are talking about that, I don't know, there's something about the behavior change, it doesn't happen fast enough. We're hearing every day decisions from the leaders of this world that are completely against the new narrative that needs to be taken. And the pace of, the technology, the dataism, this new religion about the data, the augmented humans. I mean, all that is going against the trend that we need to have in the developing world. We need to really understand that we are in a world with finite resources. Even our own life is finite, and we need to accept that, and we're not ready for that. So sometimes it's a bit scary to see that the big trend is not going in the right direction.
So obviously this is a bigger topic than sport can approach by itself. Fantastic. Before we wrap up this session with Anne-Cécile, do we have any questions from the audience? Okay.
Thank you, first of all, for the panel. It was very interesting to listen. I think you're doing an amazing job. But I wanted to ask about sponsors or, say, I don't know, like brands that you work together with. I don't know, how many years have you been working on this project?
On the ocean race?
Yes.
I started in 2014.
Okay. But have there been sponsors that you have approached that have said no at first and then come back later? And what have been their, like, the reasons for doing this?
What is interesting in that is that we've opened a new line of funding with a sustainability angle. For example, philanthropists, foundations would never come to the race without that capacity. We have to deliver impact and deliver numbers and deliver education programs and engagement. So, and now I would say 90% of the new commercial leads have a sustainability angle. So that's very, very strong and very, very powerful and really integrated in the commercial strategy and structure. And we can go ahead even faster in new ways of integrating the partners. It's not only about the brand anymore. It's what does that brand mean? What's the purpose behind it? What are you doing it about that? And what we see the value of our organization and any organization can create is that we are delivering the impact. And sometimes it's not the job of a car manufacturer such as Volvo, who was partnering with us to actually study the oceans. So they've funded the scientific equipment on board, but then they, on the back of it, they created a marketing campaign to sell more cars and gave back 100 euros per each car to the scientific understanding. And alongside that journey, they understood plastic was an issue thanks to the events we organized, as at the scale that it was. And first they banned plastic bags and plastic cutlery and single-use plastic across all their offices. And then 6 months later, before the end of the race, they really integrated 25% of recycled plastic in the manufacture of all their cars. And suddenly you see the industrial transformation needed in a very short period of time. So that's possible.
Any other questions?
Hi, thank you for your contribution in the panel. I was just curious to understand, how did you came about to exist in your organization as a function? Were you the first? Did you come before the role you're taking? And how was this role, how did it come to life? Who decided?
So it was a slow process, but initially they recruited Blue Shift, it's my consultancy agency, for 3 months to design the strategy. There was no role, no resource. There was an initial green team being created organically by people who are caring and who wanted to do something but didn't have the skills or the knowledge to make it integral in the organization. And then after 3 months, we grew the strategy, the program. I managed to fund it, find partners, and then grew even bigger. And what never happened before in the past, we brought financial partners in while the race was starting. So Blue Water, for example, they were funding the organization to provide freshwater fountains to reduce the plastic footprint 3 months after having started the event. And we came on board with foundations, Ocean Family Foundations, Mirpuri Foundations, came on board along the lines as well to actually contribute. And the end result is now we have 8 people working full time, but it was organically created and funded by the partners coming on board along the way. So it's like, it's not, I wouldn't recommend to, okay, you need to recruit 8 people straight away to work on this program, because there is no resource today to do that, So it's a slow growth, but very valuable one.
Any other questions? Fantastic. Well, please give a round of applause for Anne-Cécile Turner and thank her for being so generous with her time today. Thanks, Anne-Cécile.
Thank you very much.